Right, we've got some big breaking transfer news right now. We just told you that there had been some develops on the Matheus Cunha to Manchester United front from Wolves. Well, we're now hearing Matheus Cunha is set to join Manchester United after the season ends this weekend. United are expected to trigger the £62.5 million release clause in his contract. The club are aware by which the conditions for that clause will be met. But there's been no direct contact yet between United and Wolves. We're expecting those formalities are anticipated once the season has ended. Despite interest from other clubs, Cunha wants to play for United, and Sky Sports News has been told the deal is almost agreed. So big breaking news. Matheus Cunha is set to join Manchester United after the season ends this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge news for Manchester United and a huge boost ahead of that Europa League final on Wednesday against Tottenham. I think for the fan base to see them, close it seems to be signing one of the players of the season, it has to be said. Matheus Cunha, as you said there, Matt, 15 goals in the Premier League, assists as well, galore. And this is a player who, despite being in a struggling team, you have to say that before Vitor Pereira arrived at the club, he was single-handedly keeping Wolves up in a way and single-handedly winning them points. I mean, he scored and assisted against Manchester United themselves in December. I also look at a few other games, Southampton, for example, as well, without his moments of quality, finishing out of absolutely nothing in limited space. Like I said, winning points out of nothing. And you think for Manchester United, how Ruben Amorim wants to play, Matheus Cunha would absolutely fit in one of those 2-10 positions, because that's where Cunha's really excelled at Wolves. Bear in mind, this was a player around 2.5 years ago, signed under Julian Lopetegui. It was his first signing in January. Didn't show all that much, it has to be said, in that first 6 months. He was clearly a flair player, but didn't show that finishing touch. But then when Gary O'Neill arrived at the club the next summer, he elevated his game. He became a star player in that Wolves team and really started getting that consistency to his game. I've interviewed him many a time during his time at Wolves, and he's talked about that progression, getting into the box, knowing and understanding where to really finish and add goals to his game. And that's what he has done under Wolves and under Gary O'Neill, and now Vitor Pereira. He's continued to do that. And for Manchester United, as I said, it's perhaps a far cry in terms of going back to a strategy of looking at some of the best players in the Premier League now. Probably haven't seen this since Harry Maguire when they signed him from Leicester for around £80 million. But going back to some of the best players in the Premier League, that is Matheus Cunha with this release clause for around £60 million. It feels like a huge coup. He's still at a good age as well. But for Wolves, let's not forget them though. I think it's a really good comeback in terms of they were able to get him to sign that new contract in January, make sure they get money for him in the summer, and you would hope that they'll be able to reinvest that money in the summer. They've lost some big players in the last few years, likes of Pedro Neto, Maximilian Kilman. We didn't see that investment in the last few summers. I think they've learned their lessons to make sure they're not in another relegation fight, and they'll be looking, as you mentioned there, we've not confirmed that the clubs themselves have had any talks yet, and I think it'll be interesting to see just how that deal is broken down in terms of installments. We'll bring you that when we have it, but it looks like this is a great deal for both clubs.
And it's interesting as well, isn't it, Dan? Because Manchester United have not qualified for the Champions League yet. They need to beat Tottenham Hotspur on Wednesday, and yet someone like Cunha is willing to move there. So does that show that Manchester United still very much has pull with the biggest name players?
Absolutely it does, because they are Manchester United, and despite this era of inconsistency, especially in the Premier League, they're still a team, let's not forget, who have been winning trophies in the last decade. You look at the FA Cups, the Europa League they won in 2017. They also got to the final of this competition in 2021 as well. Although they haven't been in the Champions League consistently, they are Manchester United, as I said, and they are still competing for trophies. And I think for Matheus Cunha, he has spoken, and he did talk in January about him wanting to challenge himself at the highest level. Now, that might not be Manchester United if they don't win on Wednesday and secure that Champions League place. But I think from what we've reported previously and what has been widely reported, I think Matheus Cunha seems to have an affinity for Manchester United. But what I will say, though, just to balance that a little bit, there will be a lot of excitement around the Brazilian, but I do think you also maybe look at a few of the red cards this season as well. You hope that he takes that out of his game that we saw against the likes of West Ham, where he was then suspended. I think it was Ipswich as well. So you hope if he does move to Manchester United, he's able to eradicate that from his game, because that's something I think Manchester United have been trying to work on in terms of culture, in terms of the group that they put together. They're not going to want a player to necessarily mess that up, and I'm not saying that is Matheus Cunha, but from what I've seen over the last few years, he has been a great influence on that Wolves team, but you also want him to add that to the Manchester United side as well. And as you said, it's Manchester United and they still have that pull for some of the most attractive players, not just in the Premier League, but Europe as well.
Jamie Carragher has weighed in on the breaking news that Wolves striker Matheus Cunha is reportedly set to join Manchester United at the end of the season. The Sky Sports pundit and former Liverpool defender offered a cautiously optimistic assessment of the potential signing, highlighting Cunha's dynamic playing style and versatility in attack. He's got real energy, he's aggressive on the ball, and he's shown flashes of brilliance at Wolves, Carragher noted. But the real question is whether he can deliver consistently at a club like United, where the pressure is massive. Carragher pointed out that United's attack has lacked fluidity at times this season, and Cunha's movement and flair could be what manager Ruben Amorim is looking for. He's not your typical number 9, Carragher explained. He likes to drop deep, link play, and drive forward. That could suit United's system, especially if they continue with a more fluid front line. However, he also warned that Cunha's goal tally hasn't been prolific, and United fans may expect more end product from a forward in their starting sheet. Ultimately, Carragher believes the success of the transfer will depend heavily on how United manage Cunha's integration into the squad. If they give him the right role and structure, he could thrive, he said. But if the same chaos that surrounded United this season continues, it might be another case of talent wasted, as United look to rebuild for a stronger campaign next year. Carragher's comments reflect the cautious hope many fans share about the club's transfer strategy.